Good evening. Welcome. This is Joe back in Norway. Yes, back in the winter, cold, freezing, subarctic region. I'm joined by Ann Lee, a retired college professor and a community member at the Daily Coast. She's a member of the National Council of Independent Scholars and is a contributor to the book, The Political Economy of Art, Making the Nation of Culture. Evening, Ann.
Hey, Joe, I'm glad you
Hey there.
survived your bus trip.
Oh, Lord, that was
9 hour.
9 hours in the no comfort zone. Well, they were very comfortable seats, but
No,
yeah,
looks like
it's a
it,
bit of a
yes.
challenge. It was a double-decker bus,
Mm.
climbing up the sides of very steep, glossed, snowy mountains. So there's a bit of a sway to it. You get a it's kind of like a boat seasickness, sort of.
Yes, yes.
Well, I was down in Oslo and I was picking up supplies for the holiday over the New Year, and basically going to the outpost to pick up the stuff. And I came across this fine carbon steel walk here,
Couldn't pass it
notable,
up.
notable for its smaller size from my other one, and thus lighter. Uh, Easier. It's easier on my wrists. I have really bad wrists. Too many years of falling down while skateboarding.
Mm.
So this should help me make at least 2 to 3 dishes instead of one dish at a time before I'm in crippling pain. But so I thought I think I've seasoned a pan before on the show, but we could do it again. This is, I think, from the straight beginning. I think I reseasoned a pan. So typically the carbon steel pans that come with some nasty uh, industrial solvent or oil or some kind of protective oil or grease that we want to first uh, wash off. So there's three stages to seasoning a cast iron pan. So first we're gonna scrub this baby down with soap and water and some steel wool on both sides. And then we're gonna take it outside into the freezing cold. Hopefully my flame won't go out because I have no protection. I'm under the floodlight instead of the garage. And we're gonna put it on the wok. We're gonna heat it up and then take a cloth with oil and gently wipe it all over outside as well. And then we're gonna wash it with a little water, rinse it with some water, and then do that again. Except this time we're going to toss in some aromatics, so ginger and scallion, spring onion. You can use garlic chives, you can use onion. Um, the idea here is that they have low moisture content and they give flavoring. they're not going to flavor the metal, but the reason you're using these is to when you're creating the patina, this kind of polymer with the metal and the heat with the oil creates a kind of glaze over the pan, which makes it non-stick. So the aromatics will get into that layer, which will then reduce the metallic taste you can get from cooking in the cast iron. So we'll do that. We'll slowly brown those in here all around. You kind of mush them all around. You'll see, but it'll take about 15-20 minutes to do that. But right now, I'll just commence to scrubbing. You want to kick off with some yammering?
Yes, I'll start yammering as people can watch the prep work here. Let me welcome. This has been an interesting week, needless to say. All kinds of stuff have occurred, including the apprehension of criminals, a criminal specifically, which has its own cultural elements in it. That is, that people, because they thought that Luigi Mangione was physically telegenic, that there was some ideological break between those who are against crime. And today, Luigi was indicted, and the prosecutors are pushing for some sort of terrorist thing. Unfortunately, they don't have much of a conspiracy to work from, other than some rantings and ravings, which, with all due respect, in the constitutional rights of humans in the United States, you could probably say the same about my stuff as well. Not true, though. He definitely seemed to be planning. Their intent is being shown in the indictments. There's been a bit of piling on, of course. Eric Adams, because he wants to distract from his own legal troubles, is upfront about protecting New Yorkers, et cetera, from the scourge of corporate CEOs being gunned down in the street. And so pretty much every law enforcement agency was on top of this. I don't think there was any threat of people doing, sort of a Jack Ruby on Luigi. But anyway, Luigi has sort of a weird status, mainly because some of the early pictures of him revealed his six-pack. And so, there's a whole bunch of other things going on, perhaps.
Don't forget to mention his
So that-
skateboarding prowess.
Indeed, I put in our own Discord his leaping over a fence, doing a pretty good job of leaping over a fence with his board. It's quite good at it. It would be sad to think that his whatever they say, that it was a surfing accident that caused his back trouble. It would be probably even more tragic to think of it as a mistake he made on a skateboard. But it is true that the surfing accidents are sometimes quite scary. There's stories of being hit by a wave and being turned into a quadriplegic. So there's a history there. And so all of those elements are probably going to enter the trial. It will be a show trial of sorts. It's going to take some time, unless they were going to give this high priority for the usual political reasons. Needless to say, because it is that they're prosecuting him on a federal indictment, I think we're going to see some grandstanding by the Trump administration. So that'll be interesting to see that. And we were at least unsympathetic to corporate corporate CEOs for a little bit at the national level. And when you look at polling on the issues, people from 18 to 29, were tolerant, let's say, of what Luigi did. So there was some polling on it. There's an Emerson poll that shows some uh, age group differences among that. Anyway, that's one thing. It's just was an interesting week in general. I put up a little thing on if a tree falls from the forest and there's no one to hear it, do bears poop? Um, some guys who were, I guess, legally hunting a bear in Virginia. Um, and there's a law that says you're really not supposed to tree the bear and shoot it out of the tree. But these group of hunters, I assume, had the sort of hunting lust at work, and so one guy is decided that he would shoot the bear that had climbed up into the tree, brown bear, I think, and it proceeded to die and fall and onto someone standing under the tree. And I just can't imagine why someone would stand under a tree if you'd treed the bear. What else? Gravity's going to work somehow. And anyway, poor 58-year-old fella got crushed by a bear. So it does raise the question, if a bear falls in the woods, do people hear it? Well, needless to say, there probably at least was some yelling of one kind or another. It's just been an interesting week for strange activity. Needless to say, there was another school shooting, this time in Madison. In terms of our weekend review, the police chief in Madison made a interesting observation during his second press conference. I think he said a second grade student called 911 at 10:57 a.m. to report a shooting at school. I let that soak in. That is a 8-year-old kid called on his cell phone a 911 call, and it just it's so problematic. It brings back issues of the Uvalde massacre. There's other stuff that hasn't been released, although there's plenty of disinformation out there trying to tell us a little bit more about the 15-year-old girl who shot all those folks with a 9mm handgun. It's a Abundant Life School in Madison, Wisconsin, 400-student school. 8 people were shot, as I recall. 3 people are dead. 2 people are were 2 kids critically wounded. Teacher and a student were killed. There's a lot of disinformation out there, and I think the authorities have been actually fairly closed about what actual facts are occurring. So that's another issue. We won't know much about that for incoming weeks. I think there will be liability issues relative to the parents, and so some sort of accountability might occur. And if we use a recent shooting where the father in the Michigan case, or actually the father and the mother, I guess, received jail time for a school shooter who, in that case, the shooter is alive and incarcerated. So there's that. That is a nice pristine snow out there, isn't it? Of course, it must be colder than hell, but
I'm freezing. I'm freezing. Went from 25 degrees to minus whatever 2, 3, something like that.
darn. Makes you think
No,
Mediterranean diet out there. Yeah, sure. Right.
oh, I gotta get a bucket of water. Let's see. A little suspense here. I'm not sure. We just arrived back home, and I don't know if we have enough fuel to get through this whole process, but let's hope we do. So, I'll be right.
We'll see.
How's my camera angle? It
It's
switched
fine.
to
It's no, it's
yeah.
fine as long as you don't stand in front of the camera, I guess. If you're on the
Now,
left-hand,
the last time I was up at this angle, the phone went into safety mode because the heat was too warm.
yes, I remember that.
All right, I'll be right back.
Okie dokie. Well, let me continue to yammer that the domestic matters. ABC Network caved in to a defamation suit and coughed up $16 million to Trump because he claimed that he was being defamed by George Stephanopoulos. My assumption is that ABC didn't want to, was trading off the amount of money they would have to put into defending themselves from what is clearly Trumpian lawfare, frivolous lawfare. You know, oh, everyone's defaming me, et cetera, et cetera. I find those all very quite fascinating and a hallmark of one aspect of the American legal system that obviously is being abused. But so Trump gets $16 million, but it has been directed specifically to a Trump the Trump Presidential Library. I try not to chuckle at that description because we can all think of what that might be. The reality, of course, is that it will probably be an annoying looking structure, likely put on Mar-a-Lago. Although it's it could be put at other interesting places simply because Trump can get more money out of it. But probably at one of his properties, I would think, because I think that he actually owns one or two of them. All the others are not things that he actually owns. Things that Trump has his name on are not necessarily things that he owns, but I think he owns Bedminster. So we can imagine that something could be built on the Trump tomb and the Trump presidential library. So anyway, that's the 15 mil could probably be used as the front end of fundraising for that bit of craziness. I think it's important to remind you as another January 6th comes up that Trump's inaction for 187 minutes was part of the insurrectionist activity. And so there's still all of that going on. And it does appear that on the one hand, because of the presidential immunity provided by John Roberts, ostensibly, we're never going to see an actual prosecution in that case, even though that's probably what a fair amount of us want to see. So all that is going on. So that was the sort of week of craziness. I'll talk further about some of the things that occurred more recently. That is, Elon Musk decided that he would tweet something really, actually quite stupid. But what he did was he essentially hemmed in, didn't give Trump any wiggle room on the issue of financing the government, which at the latest report is that they did get something passed that will keep the government rolling around for maybe a little while longer over the holidays. But there was the threat that the government would shut down, or at least certain government services would shut down at midnight tonight, and that's not going to happen. So if you're listening
Praise
to
the
this in
Lord.
real time, at least, some of the people will get paychecks and other things will occur. But that's part of the current state of U.S. government. But a lot of people got blindsided. The Republicans got blindsided. 38 of them decided to vote against the plan that was produced yesterday.
Can I interject, Dan,
And
before you go on?
sure, no, carry on.
We're cooking with gas now, but I don't know how much of it. So, you just go on a medium flame maybe a little bit higher since we have high subarctic winds. And you're just kind of rolling it around. The snow is going to be causing problems. Oh boy. It'll start to get discolored. Oh, damn it. I forgot the oil. Oh, totally out of. This is going to be. All right. You can see it's starting to discolor. So once it gets warm enough, we put oil on it, which I don't have. So I got to run back in. And I got to enlist some help here. We got the camera here is getting snowed on, and a little bit of
looks fine. Looks fine,
drama. All right.
No, it looks okay. Yes, in the middle of snow. Well, it for those who have joined us late, Joe is seasoning his new walk, a lighter walk that is easier on his wrist. And those of us who don't have carbon steel walks, are on the one hand grateful for not having to season our walks, but on the other hand, they don't have the same kind of taste, I would assert, which is the reason why people still use carbon steel. And Joe decides to do this not on the stovetop, but rather with his high output burner, which is fairly important object. That darn thing really does look like a jet flame when it's at full tilt. Ah, he is back. Yeah, that's not calcium carbonate you see all over the ground out there, which is what we were looking at Joe a week ago on in Turkey.
That is true. Although it was just as cold, but with the calcium carbonate, at least we had a 56-degree trough of water raging down. Oh. That we could dip our toes in.
Nice. That looked nice.
So I've got supposed to be a rag, not a paper towel. Forgive me. I'm not being so environmentally conscious. So just a light coating of oil, both sides. We want to get this kind of color will go out all around. And when you don't think about, well, it is sort of laziness, but if you buy one of these and you don't have a decent stove, gas stove, the best thing to do is go to an Asian restaurant that has one of these and just ask them if they could burn it for you, season the wok real quick for you. Might charge you. Sometimes I've just they did it for free. Depends on the place. Don't go when they're busy. Recommend.
Yeah.
Curious how this wooden handle is going to hold up. It does get quite warm. Burn my hand a lot less. I normally use a glove or a towel, but they always don't quite work that way.
Well, I use something like an oven mitt that the thumb part or whatever fits over the handle. An old oven mitt. So you have some insulation to grab that with. I have one for my small one.
Try some. What's that?
Didn't say anything.
Yeah, bring an umbrella. Okay, so now we got our first layer of oil. Oh, the snow all over the place here.
Looks fine, Joe. The
Yep.
image is
So then we pull it down, wash it with some water. Okay, where'd my oil go? About a tablespoon or so.
doesn't matter on type of oil, right? Just vegetable oil is fine.
Well, the high burn point.
Uh-huh.
I just use. You can use peanut. I'm using. I think this is just a mixture. Oil is expensive here, oddly enough. If we pump it out of the ground.
Ha! Oil's
But
expensive everywhere.
So what I'm going to do is just for the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to slowly cook these around until they get nice and brown. And we should have a nice patina on the wok after that. So no more interruptions from me.
That's quite all right. Thanks for reminding us what one uses in order to season one's wok. I'm glad the flame is still working. Okay, well,
Yeah,
it's
but you can't block the light. Maybe stand behind me.
It's another week in Ukraine. Several chemical plants have been hit in Russia. Some by interesting, different types of drones, by Ukrainian drones. A large chemical plant that supplied rocket fuel, though it did produced rocket fuel for weapons. Also, other kinds of chemicals for ammunition, etc. So that got hit, not in a major way, but I think the Russians always get more nervous every time something gets hit far into their territory. There is a report that that Murmansk actually got hit, which I don't know what sort of truth there is to that, but that's pretty far north. The port of Murmansk got hit by a drone. It is that thing about that it's a kind of demonstration, and much of reporting from Ukraine is about these sort of demonstrations. The Ukrainians show that they can get a drone really far into Russia, including Moscow. And the Russians recently, yesterday or day before yesterday, Vladimir Putin decided that he would challenge the U.S. or NATO, the West, to a missile duel. That is, he did his usual threatening to send one of these MIRVs, multiple, targeted warhead missiles. It's a ballistic missile that would normally be used to rain nuclear weapons onto all the major capitals in Europe. It's used in a much shorter way to drop things on. The last one was used to drop 5 dummy warheads and a single, I think, armed warhead on Kyiv. So my sense of it is that he's got these extra sort of intermediate designs of ballistic missiles that haven't been, tried out. And he's decided that he's going to use a couple of the old ones that as little saber rattling exercises to threaten Western Europe with. So that's happening. In between all of these matters is the continuing fall of the Syrian government, and a new Syrian government put in place that involves recently there's something that's been negotiated that the Russians will be able to keep all their bases in Syria. So that's still happening, even though the Russians were unsure of what the status of their position was, and started withdrawing equipment and troops from Syria. I don't know if they're continuing to do that. There is some sense that they are. There was a report today that one of their ships, they weren't fueling it. They weren't transferring fuel to it in the port. Rather, they were standing off from the port because they were, probably worried that they would get hit by something. None of that has occurred. And apparently, there's just a lot of folks who were exiled, as it were, from Syria that are returning from Turkey and a variety of other places. So it's a kind of interesting time with the fall of the Assad government, and that's but for a week or so, the Kremlin didn't know what to do, and erred on the side of caution, and because they do have a fairly large base in a Syrian port. So there was that. Trump did not invite Vladimir Zelensky to his inauguration, even though he has invited, I think, Xi Jinping, who probably will not show up. Let's see who else. Kim Jong-un, I think, has been also invited and will probably not show up. But of course, Trump wants the inauguration to be a big deal. Just wait until we see the crowds that show up, or we'll see the usual kind of silliness that will occur because of counting crowd size. One hopes that the crowd will be even smaller than the 2017 inaugural.
Is he going to get his military hardware parade this time around?
Well, he's a lame duck, so maybe he'll be able to order something. I mean, he managed to try and do it for some, and not so much military parade of hardware, even though he did have some in place for a couple of these things. He sort of threatened that he was going to roll a tank down Pennsylvania Avenue, but I don't think that's going to. I don't think it'll happen this time either. Although it would be interesting to see if he does. Some other stunt could occur. I'm just hoping that it'll be similarly stupid. On those same grounds, Trump has indicated that he might try to reestablish his ownership, and I'm sure the lawyers are working on this, to retrieve his hotel back in D.C. so he can make more money. With bribes or gifts. Let's call them gifts from foreign countries. And no one in the press is adding all these things up, which is what they should, because clearly it's a kind of a boondoggle in that sense for Trumpian financing. I mean, if you started accounting for what actually was going into these inaugurations, because it's kind of wide open. You could throw all kinds of money at Trump without being accountable for it. So, needless to say, that's going to happen. If I haven't mentioned it before, Trump does have a new building project for a new Trump Tower in Saudi Arabia. So there's that. Anyway. Back to Ukraine, there's continuing offensive operations. The Ukrainian salient that is in Kursk Oblast, that is in Russia, is shrinking a little. But, the point was that they were never going to be able to hold it. It would just take an incredible amount of resources to try and hold Russian territory. So that hasn't quite happened yet. Um, there's a lot of secondary stories that are going on, uh, defacing Korean North Korean soldiers, and it's now more clear that elite troops are not being used, but rather um, similar to the Russians, they may be using prisoners or whatever, the North Koreans who are fighting with the Russians. The problem, of course, is a language barrier that, not the North Koreans are not bilingual with Russians with Russian, so it's just you have to rely on probably an officer corps that actually can speak Russian, and they're being integrated with other um, more Asiatic troops that are being used. So there's that. But they're having
Okay, I gotta
casualties.
interrupt one last time,
No,
Ed.
carry on. Carry
We
on.
got a snowstorm coming, so we're all done.
Oh,
We
good.
got a nice little patina, not totally smooth. It's a bit so it keeps snowing up things.
The image looks
that
fine
was
on
the
this end.
initial seasoning, and then every time you cook with it, it'll just keep building up more and more patina. So they washed it at the end, and that's it.
Yay.
All
Nice.
right, now I got
Looks
to go
great.
in.
Exciting. Fun with carbon steel.
Back to you.
Okay. That's a pretty thick Norwegian door there. Keep out the cold. I say that only because I've got to replace. I have a door to replace at some moment. Um, anyway, needless to say, in Ukraine, that's kind of what's going on, and battles and combat is occurring. Um, it's still a discussion of drones and horrible things happening. In my own postings, I try and minimize the number of ones where terrible things happen. For example, yesterday there was one where the drone was homing in on a North Korean soldier, a pair of North Korean soldiers, and one was shooting desperately at the drone, which was coming at him with a probably a warhead of some kind. The standard drone has um, the something like a mortar shell or a rocket propelled grenade round, and it's wired so that if it once it comes in contact, it'll blow you up. The thing is, he was shooting wildly to try and knock the drone down because that's the current method of trying to defend against them, particularly if you're caught out there in the open, which is what they've been sending these poor guys, these North Koreans. They're sending them across. There's it's snowy landscape, so you can sort of see these guys coming across the field, and the Ukrainians are kind of, saying, well, that's pretty pathetic. And, they're far too easy to kill. So anyway, in this one case, the drone swings around, comes back. The guy, this one Korean is still shooting at it, and then proceeds to shoot his comrade he's being wildly shooting. And it's just sad. Um, tales of gun safety, of proper discipline on the battlefield. Anyway, and so you have a video of this kind of activity going on. Fortunately, I try and keep those to a minimum because there are far too many of them. People blowing themselves up, or as was revealed a couple of weeks ago, the uh, there are instructions that are given to Russian soldiers in the field on how to properly commit suicide, um, either with a grenade, where you're supposed to sort of hold it, then, pull the pin and there you go, or how you shoot yourself to death, which is just all of these things are part of the daily reality. somewhere between somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 casualties occur on the Russian side every day. Fortunately, the Ukrainian side doesn't have quite so many casualties, but there are manpower personnel issues on both sides, and at some moment the Russians are going to run out of troops from uh, outside oblasts from the Far East or whatever. But it's very interesting in sense of some things haven't really changed from prior wars. Just as an aside, I was reading about how because Stalin wanted to clean up the town of Vladivostok, this is on the eastern rim, that is the Pacific rim of Russia. It's the major port, and because of port development and stuff, it it had its Chinatown, as it were, and needless to say, places where issues occurred. In 1935 or 36, he decided he would just move everybody out, and so there is this a thing about moving whole populations out, and that you know if you have the power, you do it. And similarly, needless to say, it applies to certain other parties in the United States who want to be able to evacuate entire populations. And the Russians practice this same activity in terms of repopulating areas, the occupied areas in Ukraine, um, the with putting other ethnic Ukrainians, but also Russians to try and repopulate certain areas. And they do this, on the one hand with incentives, but also by sort of edict. And needless to say, this has occurred throughout the three years of war, and the kind of movement of Ukrainians in from occupied countries, occupied oblasts to other areas of Russia are just sort of part of this moving populations around, which goes back to other kinds of demographic kind of activities that occurred, gulags at all. So those are sort of the Ukrainian stories of the moment. We're at that moment where we're going to describe what's coming up later this evening. A Twilight Zone is at 8:30, and I don't know if John is here. John, are you here to tell us a little bit more about Twilight Zone tonight? And maybe also tell us about Star Trek this weekend?
Yes. Well, tonight we have a special episode of the Twilight Zone in the sense that it was broadcast in 1964 and not seen again on television until 2016.
Huh.
And it is the only episode of the Twilight Zone that was not put into syndication because of controversial content.
There you go. Well, this should be fun.
Oh,
Yeah. So you might, if you try to do some research on this, you might see some people saying it was banned. Well, it was not banned. That suggests that the government was censoring it or something.
Withheld. Let's put it that.
Yes, it was withheld by the network that had the controlling rights to it. So um, I'll go into why, and well, you'll see for yourself why. It may have upset some people, and we can have I think it'll make for a very interesting discussion.
Oh, a lively conversation. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Uh, later, please tell us about Star Trek on Sunday.
So Star Trek on Sunday at 5 o'clock Eastern time. We are in the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which of all the seasons is the least least good, I would say. Uh, the show was finding its footing.
Sounds like one of my kind of episodes.
Yeah. Yes, I think you'll enjoy it, Joe. No, it's not a terrible episode. It's called Lonely Among Us. And yeah, that's on Sunday at 5.
Exciting.
And I'll be showing some more photos discussing some frozen moments in antiquity just before each of the film viewings, Saturday and Sunday. So from our trip in Turkey and Greece.
We haven't yet decided whether we're going to repeat the showing that may happen this later this evening after Twilight Zone, and that is Lust, Caution, the Ang Lee film. We'll see how that works out. So either Saturday tonight or Saturday, both, or on Saturday, just to be in keeping with the kind of vintage films that Susanna usually shows on Saturday. I will perhaps show either a screwball comedy or a noir film. So be one or the other. We'll figure out which one. I always like showing His Girl Friday, just because I think it has so many, let's say, left references in it. Which I just find it fascinating that it talks about the communist invasions and stuff like that, the Red Menace and stuff in a screwball comedy. That it is just one of my more favorite films, and it's as a screwball. I like screwball comedies simply because their pace is different and they're just sort of fascinating. Well, that's just me. But that may be what we'll show on Saturday. If not, maybe tonight if I can find a copy. Needless to say, Lust, Caution will be shown at one of these 2 days, and we'll sort of work through that. And if it happens on Saturday, it'll happen probably around 7:00 because that's what Susanna was showing before, so we'll try and keep to that. 3:00 on Saturday and Sunday will be weekly marks, with as Joe has mentioned his slides from the Mediterranean, which really fascinating stuff. It reminded me that of the really incredible detail of images, sculpture, etc., from antiquity that were incredibly influential for the production of art in the Renaissance. So all of these things are interesting and important. We're close to the end. We'll try and do better next week. Bye.
Take care. All.